Welcome to the Hockey Writers Union Junction, a weekly show from our Columbus Blue Jackets insider, Mark Scheig, bringing you the latest news, rumors, trades, player grades, game results, and much more. From training camp to the playoffs, from draft day to the trade deadline, he covers everything that happens with the Jackets. So get ready. It's time for another get-together at Union Junction.
Well, welcome back, hockey fans. Welcome back to Union Junction. It is Thursday. It is already December the 23rd. Hope you got your Christmas shopping done, because Christmas is right around the corner here. But great that you took a few minutes to join us here. Mark and Nick are with you. Figured this would be the perfect opportunity in the Christmas spirit. Let's have a fun show. Let's have a little bit of a present for you. And that's what we're going to dedicate this show to this week. We're going to spend the entire time, 30 minutes or so. We're just going to answer some fan questions because, you know what? I think everybody needs a little bit of something to take their mind off the world. There's been so much talk about COVID and just it seems like what the grim reality is out there. The perfect opportunity to maybe disconnect for a little bit and have some fun answering some really good questions. We got some really good questions in from the fans this week, so we very much appreciate it. Nick, how you doing?
It's been a wild week, eh, Mark? Holy jumping.
Gosh. What a week. And just from the postponements to almost 20% of the league was on the COVID list at one time, or is on the COVID list at one time. How great was it to actually have a hockey game on Tuesday night?
Yeah, definitely nice. Although I got to say, I don't know about you if you're feeling this too, but man, my fantasy league is really taking a pounding here.
Oh, you should see all the red. Like if you have
it's a disaster.
It's a complete disaster. Look, the letter O for out, PPD for postponed, IR for injured reserve. We can go on and on and on. But yes, my fantasy lineup is very much painted red. I assume yours is too.
Oh my gosh, yeah, it's just a disaster, like
Well,
a massacre.
Well, luckily for us, I think that applies to everybody, and most everyone's in the same boat. Although I do invest Lesky in one of my leagues, so
that's a good pick.
Nice, it's a good pick.
That's always a good pick.
That was my keeper league, so him and Adam Fox are my two keepers. So
that's good.
It's a pretty good start to have. But yeah, so can the fantasy talk for now? Let's get to some of the questions. Again, fans, thank you so much for giving us some really good questions. And let's just start right off the top here, because we got a really good one. I think would make for an interesting discussion and could go for a while too. So I want to make sure that we get proper credit here. So Mike Fink came in at Finks_thoughts, and he has this question. I like to call it the Maple Leafs theory. And he asked, hockey philosophy question, one that I've been thinking about. Would you rather build a team around 4-star players but all big cap hits, see Maple Leafs, or 15 high floor, low ceiling key contributors? Nick, what do you say?
It's real tough. It's definitely, there's no middle ground in this scenario, unfortunately. I wish that we could pick a middle ground, but you look at, let's look at the Blue Jackets.
Right.
They've been generally that 15, low, low ceiling, high floor,
low ceiling key.
Yeah. So yep. They've generally gone after that model. And I hate to say it, but hasn't, you can make the playoffs, you can get that first or second, second round sometimes. But at the end of the day, you're generally not a cup team. You can look at the Maple Leafs all day and, they're just a cursed team. I don't know what it is. I feel like if they were in any other city with maybe any less media pressure, that roster could do more. So I would cap the Toronto style right now to their situation off ice as much as on ice. So I'm going with the 4 stars. What do you think, Mark?
I agree 4 stars, but I think it's where in the roster your 4 stars are. And so you look at the recent cup winners, right? So if you look over the last 10 or 12 years, Chicago Blackhawks come to mind. What did they have? They had hot goaltending, especially Corey Crawford in the last couple of cups. They had a guy in Duncan Keith who never seemed to leave the ice, who was considered to be a very good and a star defenseman. Now said Brent Seabrook as well, so they actually had two of them. And then look up front, who's your 1-2? Jonathan Taves and Patrick Kane. And then you had guys who could contribute. So I think the issue with the Maple Leafs for me is, yes, you can't deny the talent that the Maple Leafs have. When you have Matthews, Tavares, and Nylander, and that whole crew, you got a good thing going. But I think the key is two guys up front, one guy in the back, and your goaltender. Look at the Lightning, right? Vasilevsky, Victor Hedman, Braden Point, Nikita Kucherov. And then if you
That's
want
not
to
even
put
Stamkos.
Stamkos in there too.
Yeah.
But a minimum of two. Like you think back to the Kings. Jonathan Quick was really good in those couple of years. Drew Doughty was really good in those couple of years. And I think we forget how amazing a guy like Anze Kopitar was for those teams, especially up front. But some combination there. So those are the teams, the Blackhawks, the Kings, the Lightning. And let's talk about the Penguins too. I mean, those couple of years, Matt Murray was absolutely on fire. Chris Letang, I think, doesn't get enough credit for being how good of a defenseman he is. And then, of course, you have Crosby and Malkin. So I think the model is out there. So look at the Blue Jackets. So where are they right now? Well, not even close to any of those teams, although Werenski is somebody who I think could eventually get to that point over time. Certainly not a Victor Hedman kind of guy yet, but somebody who could work his way into that role. I think there's a lot of people that believe that Merzlikins can eventually be a good goaltender. But are we starting to see some signs, though? I mean, depending on what your thoughts are on Kent Johnson, we're going to see him in the World Juniors here. He's uber talented, and a lot of people believe in his upside. Think of like a Kirill Marchenko, could he come in and be a star in this league? But it certainly seems to me anyway that the Blue Jackets are significantly behind those models, but there's certainly glimmers of hope anyway. What say you?
No, I agree 100%. This rebuild or retool or whatever they're calling it in Columbus, it does seem to be taking a different type of approach than maybe in the past, and they are going after those high ceiling players like Laine, like Voracek, like keeping Zach Werenski around. That's what they're going after, it seems like.
You have to have skill. And I think too, besides the important players, you have to have those key cogs that you need that guy that can play 30 minutes a night on defense. You need those stalwarts that could be MVP like up front. But you also have to have key contributors too. Like you think about those other teams, like I think of Brandon Saad when the Blackhawks are doing well. How clutch was he in the midst of all of that? You look at the Penguins, a guy like Patrick Hornquist scored the game-winning goal in the Nashville series when they won the Cup. Guys like them, those are the unheralded. So it's a combination. And it takes a while sometimes you have to luck into getting top picks. And, when you look at the Blackhawks, you look at the Penguins, they had top picks, but they had to add to them. And so when the Blue Jackets have said you've got to be a little bit patient, well, that's what they mean, because you got to get key contributors in, but you also got to get the stars in, and it just doesn't happen in one off season. It's really a year by year approach. And, at least from the way that this off season worked, it certainly, I think, has helped expedite them. I think they're a little bit closer than, what they would have been, but they need a guy like Shane Wright. Let's be honest. So even look ahead to 23, land a Connor Bedard or Mitchkoff. They need a player like that if they really hope to do something over these years, because those are the type of players that really tip the scales as to who really are the Cup contenders and who isn't.
And if you look back at the last few years, at just looking at the Stanley Cup finals,
yep.
The two styles have been able to make it to the finals. You look at the Dallas Stars, they have some high end talent, but for the most part, they really made it there as a, as a team, being greater than the sum of their parts, right?
That's it.
And those are the teams that normally make it, far, but they can't seal the deal for whatever reason it is. So, yeah.
They run to a team that just has a little bit more. And you think back, last note here about the Blue Jackets, just had they beaten Boston the year they swept Tampa, are we sitting here talking about that team possibly as champs?
That was a high-end team. They had a lot of high-end talent on that squad.
Yeah, Duchesne came in and did some things, and Brandon Dubinsky was still on that team doing his thing until he got injured. But that was a team that had a lot of key contributors too, but they had a good goaltender. They had good defense. That was a really solid team, and that was a really good Boston team that beat him. But you just wonder, had that gone a little bit differently, and they took them out to 6 games and we're up 2-1 in that series, what could have happened had they took it? That series?
Mark, I thought we were trying to stay lighthearted today. Now
I know, right?
Into the dark, like, oh man, what could have been?
Right. Well, let's turn this into something positive here.
All right, let's do that.
Sounds good. That. Good transition. Next question from @Bushido GBP. And I think this is going to be more of a question within a question, because his question is, what prospect not on a team are each of you most excited for? And I sort of interpret that as, why are you excited about such prospects? So with that said, who do you say?
So are we talking like just they haven't been drafted yet? Is that what we're talking about?
No, we're talking about drafted prospect.
Okay, by Columbus?
By Columbus, yes.
Okay, cool. So I would say, I know it's a low-hanging fruit, but I got to say Kent Johnson.
I have to say that. That's the obvious answer.
Right? He's got so much finesse to his game. There's so much to be excited about there, and how he's lit up in Michigan this year. He's still kept that level of production from the year before. Like, what's not to like? What do you think?
I'll say this, and I think that this is what a lot of fans want to hear. When it comes to a prospect like that, you want to look for confidence and swagger. I can't think, maybe Werenski's the last guy that comes to mind from a confidence and swagger standpoint when he first came in. But who's the last Blue Jackets prospect that has had so much hype around him? And then if you saw the recent interview, I think he did an interview on Wednesday in preparation for the World Juniors. He was actually asked if he was nervous or had any jitters about playing at the World Juniors, and confidently he said no. There's just that it factor about him. And knowing that this guy is eventually going to come in, most likely after this season, it seems that all indications are pointing that he's going to turn pro after his season in Michigan is over. And he could take the Werenski approach, go Michigan, sign in the AHL, finish out your year with the Monsters if there's season left. They happen to win the Calder Cup that year after Werenski did, and then come in the next year ready to try to make the NHL. But this kid has everything that you want to see. And it's also a shift in the kind of the philosophy too, as the Blue Jackets were always about defense and hard hitting and physical play and block and shot. Kent Johnson's none of that. Kent Johnson is skill and flashy and will get you out of your seat. So I think that there's an excitement just because it's refreshing and it's something different. So yes, you're right. That is the low-hanging fruit there. But is there anybody else though that comes to your mind that Blue Jackets fans should be excited about?
Well, there's another piece of low-hanging fruit. There's Marchenko. Just seeing him come over, that would be very exciting because he's done really well in Russia. And to see if he can bring that to North America as well, that's a good one. I don't know. Is there anybody kind of on the back end that you think, Mark?
That's exciting. That's where I was going to go. And I think that he's not getting the notoriety that Johnson, Marchenko, Voronkov, that some of the other guys are getting. But I will give you 3 guys that I think could eventually make impacts in different ways. So the first one is the guy they drafted, the other guys, so not Sillinger, not Johnson, but Corson Ceulemans, who was the first rounder from this past draft. Rick Nash actually just came out and did an interview talking about him and how high they're on him. Puck moving defenseman, currently at Wisconsin. I think he's going to be something special. I think that they got him in a point in the draft where almost a steal. He has to prove a few things. He has to get some size. He has to obviously get used to the league when he gets up here. He's still a few years away. But that's the one guy that I think a lot of people are underrating. He's a good player. And I cannot wait to see the development that he has on the back end, especially kind of being that next puck moving defenseman that the team needs. But there's two other guys that I think deserve mention here. One was just named the captain of his country for the World Juniors, and that's Samuel Kanasco. I think that he was a captain last year, just a solid all-around defenseman. Seems like the guys that follow him real close have all been impressed with the game that he brings. And I think it's something that we're going to have to watch. I think he can eventually make the Blue Jackets. And then the other guy that they recently drafted as well, is a little bit later, is Sloville, who's up on Connor Bedard's team up in the WHL. Really starting to get used to the North American game. Again, the common theme here, they value the puck-moving defenseman, and Sloville is all of that. Got offense, got puck-moving ability. He's improving on the defensive end. Playing with Bedard certainly not going to hurt his situation. But if you want to wrap it all around, say, who are the guys that we're most excited about? It's more than just Kent Johnson. And that should be exciting for Blue Jackets fans.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
So let's jump to the next one here from @Chad Elwood. And I like this question too, because this can go in any number of ways. And he says, what type of veterans or specific player or kind of player, so we can very open-ended here, do the Blue Jackets target in the next offseason, so in the 22 offseason?
Well, the one guy who I kind of thought heading into this season that the Blue Jackets should have targeted, and I think they really missed the boat on it, was Michael Granlund. He's an experienced guy. He was coming off of a kind of a weaker season with Nashville. He's a center, and this season he's kind of blown up and shown why. I mean, I was right. I mean, I don't want to be that guy, but so I think what they need. I haven't had too close of a look at the free agents, the free agency class this year to really throw any big names. But what they really need is some experience on the blue line. I'm not sure exactly what that would look like because, they've kind of got their top four kind of locked in with these four guys, Bean, Boqvist, Gavrikov, and Werenski. So, who comes out of that? First, that's a big question to ask if you're looking at what type of player you want to bring in. And then up front, they just need somebody who is a natural center. I don't know who that is. I don't know if they'd be at the top. It depends on if Kent Johnson's going to come in and play center or the wing. Whatever that team is going to look like next year is going to have a lot of impact on who they target. But they need a natural center, and they need some experience on the back end. What do you think, Mark?
So the one thing that I think is noticeably missing is size, right? So Josh Anderson, gone. Pierre-Luc Dubois, gone. Nick Foligno, gone. Guys that were used to playing a physical brand of hockey. And now look at what you have out there. I know Voracek's a little bit of a bigger guy, but you don't necessarily associate him with playing a physical game or anything like that. You associate him with being a playmaker, but really hasn't come up much yet. But what happens if they get into a physical kind of game? Who's the guy that's going to be able to really step up and answer that call? Sean Corrali? And Jenner? I mean, you look at some of the recent champions, like a guy like Pat Maroon. There's a reason why he's won consecutive Stanley Cups, right? He's not the most flashy name in the world, but you put him on a team surrounded by stars, acts as a protector, but he can play a little bit of hockey too. And I think that they need those kind of depth guys. Like Corrali was a good start in that sense. Like you want guys that are going to be really good in the room that you can look up to as a leader, but somebody that can, kind of be, I don't know, you want to call it a father figure, whether you want to call it protector, but all kinds of debate about what Ryan Reeves does in New York, and he's the answer to Tom Wilson. Like, if Wilson were to start to go off, let's say, who's going to jump in for the Blue Jackets right now? Is there anybody that could jump in? And I just think that over time, because we're starting to see a team that's going to have a lot of skill on it, you got to have somebody that's going to be there who can answer the bell, because that's still part of the game. And I still think that that's somebody that they need to get. So I think the rest of it eventually comes in time. You mentioned Johnson. I think he's going to be a center. At least that's what the Blue Jackets hope that he is. Texier's played much better as of late, and if he could somehow become a center, is still learning. Roslovic, even though he's had a little bit of a down year, his time on ice is down and stuff, there's still stuff there. So if they're able to figure it out, that'll alleviate some things. And then, because the reality of it is, you look at the free agency, guys just, the big guys just don't end up there. If you're going to get those guys, you have to draft them. So it's really, you can hope that somebody goes out there, or you can look at free agency to say, okay, well, who can we add that's going to improve our team that isn't going to cost us an arm and a leg? Like, the perfect example in recent CBJ history for me in that department was Gus Nyquist. Got him for 4 years, $5.5 million, just a solid veteran, a leader. Now he's got a letter on his jersey. Those are the kind of guys that they should target. Leadership role, could be wing, could be center, but they've been one of the youngest teams in the league for, I feel like, for 10 years, it seems. And they're still one of the youngest teams now. They need to have an infusion of older players to really help groom the younger guys. What do you say?
Yeah, 100%. If you look at the Blackhawks when they were really going on their tear, who did they add in free agency? Brian Campbell, Marian Hossa. Yep. These older guys who have experience and can really bring something to the locker room, along with the amount of skill on the ice. So those are the type of guys they should be targeting in free agency, and probably going through the draft for everything else. Which
Hossa is a great example. The time in Detroit, and then the time in Chicago, his impact on those teams cannot be overstated. And that's eventually when they're more ready to take that next step. You need to look for guys like that. Like, another guy that comes to mind immediately for me, and somebody that I've covered in junior, is down in Tampa, and Anthony Cirelli. You think of all the guys like Stamkos, you think of Hedman and all the stars, but a guy like Cirelli, who can kill penalties, who can win faceoffs, who can handle center ice like that, second line role, third line role, those are unsung heroes, and those are the guys that you need on your team if you're going to do anything.
Okay, let me ask you, Mark.
Yep.
Let's dig in. This is a wild card question.
Okay.
Do they need somebody on their team like Max Domi? Do they need to re-sign Max Domi?
Do they need to? And I'll say no. They don't have to. It's not one of those imperative kind of situations. Now, don't get me wrong. Domi is skilled. We're seeing signs of why they acquired him in the Anderson deal. He's doing great things for Columbus right now. But you got young guys on the way. You got Johnson. You got Marchenko. Is there even room for Domi, given where the Blue Jackets are at this point? Domi's approaching free agency status, up there in age a little bit. Does he want to come back to Columbus? Does he want to wait it out until the Blue Jackets are ready, or does he want to go somewhere to win right off the bat? And then from the Blue Jackets standpoint, say what you want about what happened before. There was all kinds of rumors about, they didn't want him back. Seattle could have had him for free, elected not to take him. Do the Blue Jackets even want him back? Well, time will tell on that front. It's all good right now, but I wouldn't call it a must-have. What about you?
Yeah, I agree. He's 27, right? 26, 27. Is he going to be, still a peak player when this team is ready to peak.
Right.
So let me ask you.
Yep.
Well, we got more fan questions. Yes or no? Is Max Domi traded at the deadline?
Yes.
Okay. Cool.
In my
Next
opinion,
question.
yes. Well, so real quick, going back to that, which is more valuable to the Blue Jackets? Either a first or second round pick, or maybe even a prospect, or Max Domi?
Right now, probably that pick.
Which would you rather have? Yeah, if you're able to get it. So say he just tears it up when everything gets back underway, and then he can go to a contender. I mean, if you can get a first round pick for Nick Foligno,
yeah, that's true.
Jarmo Kekalainen can do some magic. So we'll see where that goes. Before we get to the next question, I just have to remind you fans, we got this show. We got a lot of other great shows out there for most of the teams. We have the Morning Skate newsletter. We got so many different ways to stay connected. So just make sure you click subscribe, hit like, you hit subscribe, especially with the Morning Skate. You'll get great stuff in your inbox, great news stories. You can listen to this show. You can listen to all of our shows, audio, YouTube, whichever method you prefer. But just make sure that you click that like button and subscribe, and you will not miss anything that the Hockey Writers has to offer. So let's just get two more questions here, Nick. And I like this next one because I can kind of just imagine and let our brains go off a little bit here. What's the one rule change or new rule that will never happen, but you want to see?
Okay, here we go. This could be a bit of a hot take. No, it's not. It's not. When a team is on the power play, the penalty killing team can ice it. I think that's so stupid. What's the real incentive? Like, why are you getting an advantage when you had a penalty? I understand where it came from because the Montreal Canadiens were so good in the 70s that they had to put that rule in. But now with the parity we have, maybe it would just make people take less penalties, which is what penalties are for, isn't it? I don't know. It'll never happen. But yeah, that's one of my things.
I got a couple for this one, and let's give credit here. This is Nicholas Vanell at Nick Vanella on Twitter with this question.
Great first name.
Great first name.
Love it.
And I love his Twitter handle, Vanilla.
Perfect.
Actually drinking vanilla coffee right now as we speak.
Well done.
Well done. So, rule change or new rule that will never happen, but I want to see. It really isn't a rule, but I'd like to see the point system ditched. I'd like to see the shootout ditched. Actually wrote about that the other day. It was cool. It was a gimmick. Worked for a little bit, but now
like the Winter Classic.
There you go. Right, that's a whole nother discussion.
Right.
But speaking of penalties, how about the team that takes the penalty has to sit for the full 2 minutes? Team can score as often as they want.
Oh,
that would be something that I would love to see, because that should incentivize everybody to not take penalties.
That's fair.
Don't think that I would get enough support, but that is something that I would absolutely love to see. And then Nick in his tweet here says smaller goalie equipment or a franchise tag. And that leads me to something else. What do we do with the salary cap? Are we to the point where we need to change that? Do we need to do luxury tax? What do you make of all that, Nick?
I do like that it's the same for everybody. I think that's something that makes the game special. But at the same time, there's some teams that don't spend to the cap because they're budget teams. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So
what about in COVID, right? So we're dealing with COVID. We're dealing with all sorts of roster shuffling. What about cap exemptions for COVID? That would be something I would love to see.
It's interesting.
How many teams have had to play short?
It's kind of like a Nikita Kucherov situation, though, right? Although I guess if it's just for COVID protocol, but it'll only be 2 weeks.
Yep.
Does it really help you that much for 2 weeks?
For some teams, it certainly does.
I guess that's fair.
Because if you get they think the Blues had to play a couple guys short once, and I think some other teams are caught in that position. Yeah, for extenuating circumstances like that, I think they have to consider it.
It's really messing up the game, this COVID, eh? Holy
really,
crap.
holy moly, right?
And it doesn't hit everybody equally, so like
Nope.
some teams are really just taking it.
Right to the chin. And the last rule that I'll give that I would love to see, how about we just completely get rid of offside? Blue Jackets fans, I think, would love that because they'd have about 5 or 6 more goals on the board, Nick. What can you say?
Too soon, Mark. It's
Too
too
soon,
soon.
huh?
What are you doing to us?
Oh, trying to have a little fun and make
Twist the knife.
Laugh. Twist
the knife.
More, right? Yes.
That's classic.
That's twice in one episode now.
Man, it would be fun though to see some of these guys. Like, I bet there'd be like some sort of curmudgeon, like Sean Avery styles, like just sit in the other team's slot the whole game if there's no offside.
Oh my gosh!
Just stay there. They ice it down to him. Yeah, man.
A lot of ways that could go. That was a really good question. So we appreciate that.
I like that one. Thank you, Nick.
Yes.
Beautiful name.
Nice. All right. So I've got one more here and then we'll wrap it up. So from Michael Neff. And Michael, I'll give a little shout out here. So they were in a group that was on their way to Buffalo. I was already in Buffalo for the game before we found out that it was postponed. They were in Erie, about 90 minutes away when they found out the game was postponed. So instead of going to the Sabres game that was postponed, they flipped the car around on I-90, headed to Cleveland. They got tickets to the Browns game.
Boom.
Pretty good stuff to go from hockey to football in that little bit of time. Talk about improvising. That's really good stuff. That's worthy of a shout out. And he just asked a really nice question. He says, what's your favorite arena in the NHL and why? And he mentioned Seattle. It even beats Vegas. Just gorgeously constructed. Vegas still has the best entertainment, though. What about you, Nick? Favorite arena? And it could be one that you've seen or been to.
Okay. So I've only been to 5 or 6. I'd say I'm a little biased because I grew up at Joe Louis Arena. So like I love just going to see a Detroit hockey game. Not a fan of Detroit, but like it's a good environment. And what they've got at Little Caesars Arena right now, that is a special arena. And I don't think it gets enough hype. Like the concourse area, it's like you're walking down a street, like in a good way, like, you know, one of these downtown walking areas. Like it's really nice. I really like it. They don't have enough bathrooms, but the sight lines and everything about that experience, I'm really partial to Little Caesars.
So little insight here. I will be at Little Caesars Arena in April when they go. It's a Saturday. They play Detroit. I expect a hot and ready at my seat when I get there. Now, whether that actually happens or not, well, completely remains to be seen. But
their Little Caesars pizza at Detroit sports stadiums is next level compared to anywhere else.
The neighborhood ones, I agree.
Yeah.
So, here in Erie, Little Caesars is kind of everywhere. There's like 6 or 7 locations. It's been a big thing for a while. And their pizza's okay. So that's really encouraging to hear that Detroit goes next level.
It's good. Yeah, and it's like thick, deep dish. Oh my gosh.
Okay,
I want some now.
So Columbus has Jets. So they do a pretty decent Detroit style pizza. It's not quite to the level of being in Detroit, but it's pretty good.
I haven't been to Columbus's arena yet. That's on my list. 100%.
Get down there soon. Yeah, it's definitely waiting for you.
Perfect.
Now,
what's yours?
There's a couple. You know, I've been to, I'd say, half the buildings in travel. So, every arena kind of has its own little flair, right? So, Pittsburgh has a nice press box. They've got pretzel nuggets. I always rate it by food. You know, that's where I tend to go when it comes to rating this. The pretzel nuggets in Pittsburgh is completely awesome. Buffalo in years past had the dessert bar, and no one that I knew of actually was able to replicate. Like there was a whole cart of desserts, anything you can think of, pie, brownies, cookies, whatever you could think of, cake. It was just literally a dessert bar, and you could just help yourself at a cost of $0.
That's dangerous, Mark.
My body did not appreciate me for the couple days after. Let's just say keep it there. The United Center is couple reasons for that. When they have the anthem, one of the best anthems, Jim Cornelison is just
Yeah, he's awesome.
incredible. Their press box too is really, really nice. I remember having a whole meal in the press box. They even serve popsicles. They had chocolate popsicles and Haagen-Dazs up in the press box waiting for us.
All right, my mouth's starting to water here, Mark.
I know, another dangerous one. I've heard Minnesota's got a really good press box and food offering too. They always tweet the menu, and I'm always just jealous every time that I see it. I've been to PNC Arena. That place is cold. That ice tunnel that they have down there, oh, I think I'm still freezing from that, and that was 2017. But just the atmosphere, though, that's what's cool. When you get a full house like that in Carolina or Chicago. I was actually at Joe Louis Arena to cover a game the last season that it was up. Smelt like popcorn everywhere. You could tell that it was an old building, but just the whole atmosphere again. But if there's one building that I thoroughly enjoy being a part of, though, that I've been to, I have to say Vegas. 2019, I got to experience it. Just so super well done from beginning to end. They actually, during pregame, tailored a Star Wars themed pregame and involved the Blue Jackets with it. I mean, how cool is that? And then to have the whole ground shake, the whole building shake. I mean, it's just next level awesome. If you get the chance to go to Vegas, you just have to go. So that, by far for me, would be my favorite arena.
Good pick.
Good stuff. Well, Nick, this has been a lot of fun. Over 30 minutes goes by really quick when we have a lot of fun and answer questions like that. And fans, we really appreciate you taking the time to join us here on Union Junction. I know the Blue Jackets are down right now. We hope that their next game is at home against Toronto. Will they be able to cross the border even? We'll see. The next game after that is the Seth Jones game against Chicago at the United Center. So hopefully get some games up here. Got a lot to talk about. We will be back next week at this time with another episode here. So thank you for joining us. Hope you have a great week. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays to everybody who celebrate. Stay safe. And we look forward to talking to you real soon down the road here on Union Junction. Take care.